Have you ever wondered how you can go about entering a tree stand set or an area where you set up a hunting blind to hunt the white-tailed deer without ever alerting any nearby deer or letting the deer know that you exist? Have you ever wondered how you can go about doing that? Well, I'm here to tell you today that there's 5 top ways that I have learned through the years that you can use to go about doing this. And so I'm sharing with you 5 ways that you can go about accessing a tree stand set and exiting a tree stand set without letting any deer know that you, the human, exist, or without letting the deer know that there's human disturbance coming and going from that area. And I haven't used all of these 5 methods. That's because there's like 3 of these 5 methods that I've used all the years that I've deer hunted with very good success. And I've gone on to fill my deer tags using 3 of these 5 methods for access and entry without alerting deer. But there's a couple of these 5 methods that I've learned throughout the years, listening to podcasts and reading many magazine articles, reading books, and watching YouTube videos like from Bill Winke. One of these 5 methods you can use to go about hunting your tree stand set without letting any nearby deer, surrounding deer, know that you're there, know that you exist. One of these methods I learned from Bill Winke himself by watching his YouTube videos. But I want to share that with you in these 5 methods you can use to access and exit your tree stand sets, to not alert any deer, or to not disturb any deer with your human presence, or without letting the deer know that there's humans in general anywhere around them in this area where you're hunting the deer, where you're hoping to put your tag on that trophy buck that you've scouted, that you've got trail cam pics of, and that you've been maybe hunting for a couple years now. These 5 methods for access and entry are going to help you tag that trophy buck of a lifetime. The very, very top of the list, the number 1 and the number 1 foolproof method for access and entry that anyone can use to not let deer know that there's humans there, humans around, human presence nearby, is by letting someone, whether it be a friend, whether it be a child of yours, or whether it be your spouse or anything, just letting someone drive you in to the area where you want to walk from, start walking into your tree stand or your blind, and then letting that someone drive out. This is the number 1 foolproof method anyone could ever use. This will work every time, and you want to keep alert. You want to stay on high alert, because within that first hour of silence, after that individual dropped you off at your blind or at your stand, or dropped you off within a couple hundred yards of your stand, you may have to walk a little ways to get into your tree stand, into your blind, but having you be dropped off of a side-by-side four-wheeler, by a truck, it doesn't matter, and then having that individual drive away, those deer, all the surrounding deer that heard that vehicle coming in, they're on high alert at that moment, that instance. They're listening, they're looking, they're smelling. They know that there's human disturbance coming into the area. But they hear that vehicle, or that four-wheeler, or ATV, UTV, or the side-by-side, whatever it is that you're using for a vehicle to have your friend or spouse or child or whatever to drop you off. Those deer, they're listening to that vehicle depart. And then the woods go silent. And they're going to go immediately back to what they were doing. Bucks are going to go back to doing bucky things. Does are going to go back doing the doe things. They're going to go back to grazing, feeding, and go about their morning routine or evening routine, whatever it is that's on their mind to do at that moment. Those deer are going to go back doing what they were intending to do. And you want to be ready, because within an hour's time, you could have deer right there coming into your set, coming by your tree stand or blind. So that's the number one foolproof method for access and entry. And then obviously on the flip side of this, after someone drops you and departs and you go about your hunting, obviously you send your text to that individual to come back to pick you up. You want this individual to drop you for the hunt, and then when the hunt's all over, have them drive back in to pick you up and then depart. And if you keep doing that time and time again, you're going to be successful. This the number two foolproof method for accessing your stand set. I learned this from Bill Winke himself. I watched his YouTube videos, and I've read his articles that he's written in the different deer hunting magazines about this, using this method, this approach for harvesting a trophy mature buck. What Bill Winke does sometimes, and what he's done with great success, is just gone in early morning to his tree stand location, and without any care in the world, if he bumped some deer on the way in, or left, or even for that matter, left human scent behind, he didn't. He just went in. Deer may have crossed the path where he walked and caught his ground scent. He may have jumped some does and bucks on the way in. He didn't care about it. It didn't matter because of this method that he was using. He was going in, getting in the stand for the morning set, sitting all day hunting, and then getting down, and he was sleeping somewhere nearby his stand set. He was using a bivy sack to crawl into and get toasty warm and get in and out of the elements. And he was sleeping in a bivy sack out there in the wilderness, near somewhere close by, within probably 30 yards of his tree stand. And then come morning, he was able to just get up and pack away his bivy sack, and just climb into his tree stand nice and silently, get all settled in, and just wait it out. Wait for that trophy buck that he was hunting, that he was hoping to put his tag on, to come by. And he had to do this for a couple evenings, had to sleep out there in his bivy sack. This was an area, a spot, and he just knew for certain that this buck, this target buck he was after, would come by based on trail camera data down low elevations and down near the ATV paths and out in the fields, and just all the trail cam data he got all around this area. And probably from years prior, following this buck and just keeping tabs, keeping data, year-to-year data on this buck, he was able to pinpoint the exact location that he expected this trophy buck to come by at the right time, and during the pre-rut, when it was the seeking, chasing phase of the rut, when the bucks would be on their hooves all day long and going to and from doe groups, traveling widely. He knew he'd be able to be successful at putting his arrow through and his tag on this trophy target buck he was after by going out there and just staying until he was successful, until he got that buck, and then going home, being a happy camper and having his tag on that trophy buck he was after. And he did it. He did it with success. He slept out there. The bivy sack. It took like 2 or 3 nights of sleeping out there before he got the buck, but it worked. And it made a great story. And I loved watching the videos where he explained this, showed this, and reading his articles about this. But this is the number 2 method that anyone can use for your approach, for your access into your stand or blind set, without letting any deer know that there's human presence, human disturbance nearby. And I do recall he tucked himself into like some rock crevices in depression area and somewhere, and he slept where he was confident, sure that no bucks would catch his ground scent where he was sleeping. Yeah, he picked a perfect spot, a spot void of deer, a place that deer weren't walking and traveling through, for setting up his bivy sack and sleeping overnight. So that way his ground scent wasn't caught when any passing deer came by his tree stand when he was up in the stand. So that's how he did it. And it worked perfectly. So this number 2 method that any hunter can use for that matter, to go into your stand and to not let any surrounding deer know that there's human disturbance. So that way you can go about getting that target buck you're after, or just shooting a mature trophy buck in general. So the number 3 method for access and entry that any hunter can use. And this is one method that I've used year after year. This is a method that I use commonly, and mostly this is probably the number one method that I use for access and entry, for accessing my stand sets and exiting my stand set, is I try my darndest to find an access route and an exit route void of any deer, or just areas where deer very rarely ever walk through. I might come across some old tracks, some old droppings, where a deer one time or another kind of passed through there or walked through. There might have been only one time or just a couple times in several months time span. And so I try to find areas like that the deer are not using now, currently, at the time that I'm hunting. And I'll access those areas and use my access route to those areas void of deer, areas that deer aren't traveling, walking through. And then I'll exit either using the same path for exit, because deer are not using it. If it's an area, a path that I can get away with getting to my stand quietly in the early morning or quietly in midday for an evening sit and without leaving ground scent. I'm always very careful with my human odor. I use activated carbon, charcoal carbon in my tote around my clothes to help absorb all odor and scent, to help descentify. All my clothing was washed and sent away in a non-UV brightener type of detergent. And then they were stored in a tote with stockings full of activated hunting carbon, charcoal carbon for hunting clothing and gear, to help absorb odor at all times and to help keep my clothing and gear scent free. And I wear rubber scent free boots, and my path is always clear out. I don't brush, make sure I don't break any branches, and I make sure I'm not brushing against branches and tree branches and vegetation, leaving ground scent to and from, using this path that I take to and from my stand sets. And it's always an area that I know, I'm confident that deer aren't going to walk. And like I said, I'm not saying deer don't ever maybe cross through the area that I may have walked, my access and exit route. They might cross over. It's possible that a deer might smell my ground scent, but I've never had that just happen. I've had deer all through the years cross where and go somewhere nearby and cross over where I've walked through to get to my tree stand sets, and never had them smell ground scent for me. I've never had that be an issue. But I use paths that I'm pretty certain and confident that deer aren't using, or deer aren't walking, coming and going through to and from my stand sets and blind sets. And so that's the number 3 method that hunters can use for accessing and exiting their stand sets without alerting any deer, without letting deer know there's human disturbance nearby. And then you're getting into your tree stand set, and you're watching those trails that the deer are using. And you're watching over that intersection of 4 or 5 or 6 different trails coming to this general location that you're watching, that you're ambushing from your tree stand or tree saddle or from your blind. And so that's number 3. And the number 4 foolproof entry and exit method, the tactic that a hunter can use to access a tree stand or blind set, would be utilizing creek bottoms, creek or river bottoms, walking along the shores of creeks and rivers all the way to the base of your stand. You could have your tree stand or blind set up on a river crossing and watch an intersection of deer trails, and you're accessing that stand and blind set through the steep banks of the river and stream and creek bottom, and areas that the deer aren't walking, and areas where the deer aren't crossing that creek or river bottom. And you can follow that creek and river bottom all the way to the base of your tree stand to get up into the hunt, or somewhere close by your stand. You might have to walk 50 or 100 yards to get into the stand after following that creek bottom or river bottom. But that's okay. But that's a foolproof entry method and exit method for not leaving any ground scent, and not for not crossing deer trails or walking deer trails, and for not alerting any nearby surrounding deer of your access and exit. And also, in addition to this, and using river bottoms or creek bottoms for your travel to and from your stand sets, using really steep drainages or draws. Like if you're in hilly type country, hilly terrain where you hunt, you can find these type of areas, these access points, because the heads of draws and heads of drainage ditches are like one of the number one best tree stand setups that any bow hunter can use, or any deer hunter for that matter, that can use for being successful in shooting a trophy buck. That's because there's a whole bunch of networks of trails that always lead to like the heads of these steep draw drainage ditch areas. The trails the deer trails would be coming up and down the tops, left sides and right sides of these drainage ditches, and trails come from left and right to the heads of the drainage ditches, and deer trails come from the deeper timber, the woods up above, towards this head of this draw drainage. This is a great intersection, intertwined area of deer trails that a person could watch, and they can use that ditch, steep draw drainage ditch, for access to the stand and for exiting the stand, and with full confidence that deer aren't crossing your path, catching your ground scent, and you could walk silently up and down this drainage ditch to the bottom towards the dirt road, trail, wherever you parked, and without alarming any nearby deer. And so that's number 4 method for access and entry to your stand set that you can use to not alert deer, and so that deer don't know there's human disturbance nearby. And so this leads me to the last and 5th method for access and entry. And this is one that I use currently, and I just used today on my hunt. I've been using all week. And that's using a dirt road that's almost treated like a highway, like a regular tar road, a very busy road. This dirt road comes and goes through the woods that I hunt, and it's driven by Russell Manchester, the guy that's doing the logging. He's chainsawing and cutting trees, running a fellow buncher and stuff, and loading logging trucks. Logging trucks are coming and going frequently up and down this dirt road. Russell Manchester's coming and going every day, going in Monday through Friday, going in to do his cutting. And there's employees, people that work nearby that are coming and going up and down this dirt road. There's people doing tipping right now, tipping off the sides of this dirt road, going in to get bough tips for wreath season that's going on. There's just tons of human disturbance on this dirt road, constantly, day in and day out. Traffic coming and going up, down, four-wheelers, trucks, logging trucks. And so I can use this dirt road to get in deep, to go in deep into the timber, towards the swamp and the hill country where this target buck is that I've been chasing, lives, and where he beds and frequents, according to my trail cam data over the years. I've been chasing this buck for a couple of years. I've got his shed antlers from the last 2 years in a row, and I've gotten him on a handful of trail cameras around a swamp area and around various different known bedding areas for this buck. And so I can use this dirt road to park my truck and then walk up a drainage ditch or in areas that I walk have been weed whacked and mowed down and cleared and been driven by a four-wheeler, and it's packed and matted down so I don't leave any ground scent. It's just the bottoms of my rubber boots. The rubber boots I don't drive in, I don't wear into my house. I put them on when I go to hunt. After I park, I get dressed in the field and undressed in the field. Those rubber boots come off outside and they go into a plastic bag with activated charcoal carbon in the stocking. I put the activated charcoal carbon inside the boot, and there's activated charcoal carbon in the plastic bag that the boots are in, keeping the boots scent free, absorbing all the odors and scents from those boots. And so I'm confident that I'm not leaving any ground scent when I'm walking up to the area where I'm hunting in my tree saddle, or where I'm getting into my tree stand. And these paths I use to and from my stand sets for going after this target trophy buck, like I said, have been matted down, packed down, and clear. There, it's a silent entry and silent exit, and it's through an area that gets frequented by four-wheeler, gets walked fairly often to go to certain places where there's employment going on, because there's some people that work out here where I'm hunting. But I use all these areas, these highly trafficked, highly human disturbed areas to my advantage for access and exit without letting any deer know that there's human disturbance up there at that tree stand or in that blind where I'm hunting. It's point of entry, and slip in silently, quietly into the woods, or to watch over the deer trails that I'm watching, that I know this trophy buck uses frequently, off like weekly, that I'm hoping to harvest. And I can get in there silently and have a nice evening or a nice morning hunt, knowing full darn well that the deer aren't smelling me, and I'm accessing. I've been accessing all these stand locations, stand sites, and blind sites, hunting blind sites, without alarming any deer. I've never heard any alarm snorts. I never jumped deer on the way in and out and seen deer run off. I've had deer already hunting these stand sites by using this number 5 method for access and stand sites, and for exit and stand sites. By using highly pressured, highly human disturbed dirt road and highly human disturbed trails or paths to and from and around the area to access my stand sites. I've gotten in the stand, and then within an hour or two, sitting there hanging from my tree stand, I've had like does walk right under me and not ever know I existed, never smelling me, never seeing me, hearing me. I walked on, grazed on, headed towards the bedding area. I've had a spike buck come right under my tree saddle already that I passed. I made him a movie star. I let him walk on by. He never smelt me or never was alerted to me. And then he walked right out to the area that weed whacked down and packed down area by four-wheeler, the path that I use to and from this tree that I'll climb up in with my saddle. He's walked right out, and he never smelt my ground scent. He never knew that I walked through there. So I hope that all of this was extremely helpful for you. If it was, please smash that like button for me before you go. If you haven't already, subscribe to Spikes and Gills. Click the notification bell so you'll be notified of all future uploads by Spikes and Gills. But if you are already subscribed, I greatly appreciate your support. And if you could, please smash that like button and drop your comments below. I'd love to hear from you if you are a subscriber and faithful follower, been watching all along. Please leave some comments below. I'd love to hear from you and chat with you. And before you go, smash that like button. And if you're interested in my 2 books, Wild Maine Outdoors, Hunting Tactics, Tricks, and Secrets, and The Sit Spot, Discovering the Forest Near You, you can click on any one of the PayPal links for any one of my 2 books in the description below all my videos. And those PayPal links are for my books, Wild Maine Outdoors, Hunting Tactics, Tricks, and Secrets, and The Sit Spot, Discovering the Forest Near You. And then there's the shopping icon below all of my videos. You can click on that and go in there to browse all my hoodies, hooded sweatshirts, and long sleeve and short sleeve tees. I have zipper front hoodies and pullover hoodies with left chest logo and also with the full logo in the back. This hoodie has the bigger blown up logo in the back plus the left hoodie. And I have hoodies with just the bigger blown logo in the front only. And I have zipper front hoodies and pullover hoodies, such and so forth. So I have a Spikes and Gills beanie or winter hat available through my Teespring store. You can click on the shopping icon and click on the store link to go in there to browse all my products, my Spikes and Gills products in my Teespring store. And definitely check out the PayPal links for my books, Wild Maine Outdoors, Hunting Tactics, Tricks, Secrets, and The Sit Spot, Discovering the Forest Near You. Greatly appreciate your support, everybody. Greatly appreciate your subscribe and your like. Smash that like button before you go. All right, see you in the next video.